Добрый день, спасибо всем, что здесь пришли. У нас сегодня мастер-класс профессора Грег Симонса. Он, может быть, вам так известно, но в нашем университете он уже много раз повидал, и нам всем известно, особенно те, кто учится и на журналистском отделении. Профессор Грег Симонс преподает в университете Упсала в Швеции и занимает много лет кризис в СМИ, и есть многие публикации у него, и участвует тоже на разных конференциях в Европе и несколько лет. И сегодня он у нас будет читать мастер-класс «Информационная война в Сирии». И будет на английском языке. Если у кого есть вопросы после лекции, вы можете задавать на русском языке или на английском языке. Я думаю, вам интересно.
I shall just begin by saying that if something is unclear to you, whether it is a term, some specific word, whatever, or perhaps you might want to add some additional viewpoint, just stop me like this, because you're going to get far more out of it if it's a two-way communication. That is not only me issuing some kind of monologue for an unspecified amount of time. If you put some effort in and come back to me with some questions or some comments, you're welcome to do so. And as a warning, I do periodically throw a question to the class just to make sure that you're awake and listening. So I can just throw something at you. So, as stated, this is going to be concerning the information war, which is currently concerned with the Syrian conflict. But in order to understand this, I'll need to explain some different changes within the news production process, plus also these different, I suppose what you would broadly call information technologies. That is information operations, psychological warfare, propaganda, these kinds of elements. So I'll explain these and then go into a concrete application of these within the context of Syria. So, if we look, first of all, because this is concerning mainly the news which comes out about Syria from the perspective of what appears in the Western press. That is, broadly speaking, Western Europe and North America. You've had some fundamental changes in the way news is told, because if you go back to this element, which I'm sure you're all familiar with this term, fourth estate. Anyone not familiar with what fourth estate means? Anyone not understand? Okay, so presumably you'll understand, or you're too shy to actually admit not understanding. So this is the ideological basis, if you like, for liberal journalism. And it presupposes that media are objective and that they are acting in public interest. These are the underpinning sort of preconceptions. However, the old model, business model plus ideological model, have been breaking down because you've had a number of different processes which have eroded this. First of all, news is an expensive process. And if you look at things like investigative journalism, it's extremely expensive. So these are the first ones that get cut in order to save media outlets money. And you also have fewer journalists working on the job. So you have fewer journalists, but they're actually doing more work because the news cycle has changed. You've gone from a news cycle which is quite a long one, days, weeks, but now it's measured. I was at a conference in the United Kingdom Defence Academy in the beginning of March, and they estimate the news cycle now is 30 seconds. That is, from the time it takes someone with a mobile phone to take some video of something, upload it onto YouTube or whatever, and then for news media to take note of this. So this does not leave a great amount of time, but it also means 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the news cycle is going. You don't have these stops because it's in the middle of the night, everyone's gone to bed. There are no such luxuries. You have to keep track of things. And as a result, news has gone from being something that's analytical to something that's more descriptive. So analytical, that's what I'm talking about, investigative journalism. You're going in there, you're making a very thorough investigation, an analysis of whatever the problem is, and then you report it. But now, if you look at it, it's become descriptive. So what this is, they show you a soundbite, 10-15 seconds, video with audio with it on TV, for instance. This is something that has happened. A bomb has gone off in this particular part. Any kind of news, but it doesn't actually give you any useful information apart from the fact that something has happened. Why did it happen? You don't know. But it's also, news has become something which is more entertaining. And this is something which is usually quite hidden when it comes to journalists discussing this, but there was one point when this was actually discussed openly, and that was by a journalist from the British newspaper, The Guardian. And this was in the wake of the Georgian-Russian War of 2008. And what this journalist was talking about was the Western media's failure to be objective in terms of coverage of this war. He didn't take the blame for it being a failure, although this is what he was addressing the general criticism of. But what he did say, which is the first, and I think it's the only time I've actually seen it admitted openly and publicly, is that he said that news is something that should be entertaining. News should tell who is the good guy, who is the bad guy. So it's told in very black and white terms. You've got no nuances. This is the good guy, this is the bad guy. You're told, and then everything fits this particular frame. So when it comes to of course, within the context of the Georgian-Russian War, this was Georgia is the good guy, Russia is the bad guy. You have a couple of reasons why, but a lot of it is taken for granted. And it's playing to different preconceptions, different prejudices, different ideas that are already held by people in society. Because you have associations with a country. If we look at the associations, and especially those that were used in this particular news story, you have Georgia, Rose Revolution, Saakashvili, democracy, these kinds of ideas. Good guys. Russia, you have Putin, you have Soviet heritage, you have oppression, bad guys. Even if you don't actually have a direct link between the two. For instance, you had a number of stories which were comparing the 2008 war with 1956 Hungarian uprising, 1968 Prague Spring, which from an academic point of view, or from most points of view, are completely and utterly irrelevant. Give me some clues as to why it would be irrelevant to compare these two, 1968 and 1956, with 2008. Some ideas from you? Your masterclass, you should be just, it should be coming, there are several very obvious. I'll give you a clue. The Soviet Union no longer exists. and certainly wasn't a party in the 2008 Georgian-Russian War. So there you go, I'll give you a start. Now, what other events?
With Chechnya. War with
No. It's, I mean, why would it be irrelevant to compare these, what happened during 1956